Very nice. Okay. Hey guys. Okay, you know what? Maybe it's nice that we have a smaller session between the people online and the people here because it means we could dig deeper a little bit.
On Zoom.
We have George, Jessica, Angelina, Tantragi, and Mary. We have a good group. Okay, so I wasn't here last time, but I heard the session online. Leslie, you were on the phone for it, right?
Yeah.
And Catherine, you were on Zoom as well? Okay. Well, we could cover a few things. Trying to go back. I don't want to do it from here. Okay. So, events that take place in chapter 2. Let's run through it really quick. Okay, so what takes place?
Gathering grain.
They're gathering grain, right? We ended chapter 1 with the beginning of the harvest. And then we have Ruth going to start gleaning for her family, right? Which is just her and Naomi. And starting that harvest, starting that time of coming to the field to get fed, right? Okay. And we said, Abuna kept saying the big word in chapter 2 that he kept repeating over and over was gleaning, right? Gleaning. And, you know, gleaning is that bending down, hard work, hard labor, requires energy. And she gleans in whose field? Boaz. His name means strength is in him. She gleans in the field of Boaz. And the question that Abuna presented is, what are we gleaning? What is it that we glean? Because everybody gleans something. It's just a matter of what you end up gleaning, what field you end up working in, right? Is it something that's feeding you spiritually, or is it something, you know, we presented the question of when we go on when we wake up in the morning, what do we do? And we're always on our phone or checking on the news or checking work emails or whatever. If this is what we're completely taking in the morning and what's consuming our thoughts, then that's what we'll be fed of. And that's always going to leave us something. Okay. And then she starts cleaning and then... Yes, George?
Hi.
Hi, George. How are you?
Cool.
So we start seeing some of this gleaning that takes place. And the gleaning, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so you could always, you know, be gleaning something either on your own or in his field. Okay, so she starts that process and then he notices her, right? And he comes and he asks his servant, who is this person? And he notices her hard work, he notices her effort, and he asks, who is this woman? And they tell him, you know, it's just a Moabite woman who came in and she is been gleaning, working all day, but he takes notices of her hard work and her effort. He invites her then to come and to keep working, and she finds favor in his sight, right? If we look at verses 8 or 9, he tells her, stay close to my young women, let your eyes be on the field which they reap and go after them. Have I not commanded the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink from what the young men have drawn. So there is this beautiful encounter that we see between Boaz and between our Ruth. She is working in this field and he notices that effort. He notices that hard work. He doesn't know who is she, but he asks that question and he goes after to figure out who she is and starts that conversation. I want to just have you guys notice a couple of things. Look at verse 4 for a second. Look at verse 4. It says, Now behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, the Lord be with you. I don't know if Abuna mentioned this last session, but the Lord be with you. What is that? What name kind of means that? The Lord is with you.
Emmanuel.
Emmanuel, right? Thank you, Jessica. Emmanuel, right? So it comes in with the greeting of Emmanuel, of Christ himself coming in from Bethlehem, right? And Emmanuel, the Lord be with you. So we see right away that now, Christ is coming into this beautiful story. A couple of more things that Abuna touched on is for us to try to be sensitive to our relationship with God, in that she knew, she walked into this field not on accident. God planned for her to be there, and she started to work in that field because she needed that Redeemer. And we're going to see that in today and in chapter 3 as well, needing that Redeemer. And he left us with, each person to evaluate their life, to retreat away and figure out what is it that we need redeeming from. Each one needs a Redeemer. What do we need to be redeemed from? Okay, very good. So I think I'm going to stop around verse 13. So maybe we can read 12 and 13 and then pick up from 14. Let me pull it up on here as well. Okay. So we'll start at 11, so it makes sense. And Boaz answered and said to her, it has been fully reported to me all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, and how you have left your father and your mother and the land of your birth, and have come to a people whom you did not know before. The Lord repay your work, and a full reward be given you by the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings you have come for refuge. And she said, let me find favor in your sight, my Lord, for you have comforted me and have spoken kindly to your maidservant, though I am not like one of your maidservants. This is where we stopped last time, and that under whose wings you have come to find refuge, something that we're gonna, maybe talk about for a second. Of under the wings, that expression comes from, actually it comes later on with the ark, or sorry, the expression comes from beforehand with the Ark of the Covenant and the mercy seat, where the cherubim cover with their wings, right? The mercy seat. And it's almost like a term of, like, if I say that, under whose wings you might find refuge. What does that give? Like, under the wings, what does that term give us? How can we see that?
Protection.
Protection, right? So there's security there, right? Exactly. There's security, there's fellowship. There is, I could either be under the wings of God or outside of it. And we're going to discuss here in a little bit why, what did she do in order to be under the wings? So it could be under those wings or outside of them. And all of it depends on how satisfied we are. People, back in the Old Testament, they couldn't go into the Holy of Holies, where this ark is, where this glory is, where these wings are. People were outside of it, and only, the high priest once a year would be able to go inside in order to see this glory. And we know now that during, after Christ's crucifixion and resurrection and ascension and the descent of the Holy Spirit, we're able to enter to that Holy of Holies. We're able to have that full wing protection that Christ offers. It all depends on if we're kind of satisfied. We know that this thing exists. We know that this type of glory exists, this type of protection exists, this type of fellowship exists, and we're okay with just knowing, or if we take steps to enter towards it. Okay. So we start then at verse 14. I'm going to go, maybe Catherine, you could read for us verses 14, 15, 16, and 17.
Now Boaz said to her at mealtime, "Come here and eat of the bread, and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar." So she sat beside the reapers, and he asked spared the grain to her, and she ate and was satisfied and kept some back. And when she rose up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, "Let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. And let grain from the bundles fall purposely for her. Leave it that she may glean, and do not refute her." So she gleaned in the field until evening, and beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an what is that? Ephah of barley.
Okay, very good. Okay, so let's take it one verse at a time. So it says, now Boaz said to her at mealtime, come here and eat of the bread and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar. So she sat beside the reapers, and he had passed parched grain to her, and she ate and was satisfied and kept some back. It seems like a nice thing. They're coming together at mealtime, and he invites this outsider, essentially, in order to come and eat with him and his worker, his right hand, men and women. We see some of the generosity of Boaz in this. But let's look at it a little bit deeper and a little bit more, spiritually. He starts off and says, come here and eat of the bread. What's the bread? Remember, who's Boaz in the story? Anyone online or here could join in. Boaz in the story is an image of Christ, right? And he's saying, come and now do what? Eat of the bread. Eat of the bread. Eat of that bread of life, right? The bread of life himself. He's coming now and he's sharing his own table, his own bread with her. Keep in mind, she's an outsider. She does not belong in this group. Actually, even earlier on, when he was asking his servants, who is this young woman? He just said, oh, she's just a young Moabite woman. They don't know her name. They don't care about her name. She's an outside young stranger. But here we have Boaz coming and inviting us to eat of his bread, to be filled and satisfied of it. And I think that the big question here, again, it kind of goes back to the few verses we read beforehand, is what is it that satisfies us? Because there's work to do, right? He didn't tell her, okay, stop working, stay here, I'm going to treat you like a princess, bring everything to you. No, there's work to do, and it's difficult. And we're going to see how much she works. But once time hits to be satisfied by something, where do we go? Where do we go? She could have, stayed. She could have said, no, I'm going to go check on Naomi. Maybe she didn't eat anything. I'll go find her something, right? She needed, and what was wise in Ruth is she knew that she needed this for herself. She needed that bread of life, of that special satisfaction that does not leave her hungry. Who had something similar in the New Testament with Christ?
Wait, say that again.
Who had something similar? Hi guys, you're right on time. I'm gonna make you pay $1 for every 5 minutes you're late from now. I'm just kidding. Who in the New Testament had something similar? That question of satisfaction. The Samaritan woman, right? Samaritan woman. She went to get the water, and he told her, "I have water to give you that will never leave you thirsty again." Right?
I have a question.
Yes.
Why did Ruth, okay, I understand the story right now, but why did Ruth have to work hard? And she was already suffering a lot, Why didn't just God or Boaz or that without the gleaning? Since he's been through a lot already,
That's a very
Why
good
wouldn't that
question.
be just the satisfaction, her reward?
I think we're gonna get to it by the end of the chapter, but if for whatever reason I forget, remind you. I think that's gonna be a good way to put the chapter together. Okay. The question for you guys online was why did she have to go through the cleaning? Why did she have to go through the hard work? Okay, and we said we'll get to it eventually. I have a question. Okay, let's read that verse one more time. We're on verse 14.
Chapter
2. He says, eat of the bread and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar. What's the vinegar here? What does vinegar taste like? You guys have had like, huh? Bitter, right?
Yeah.
So why would he, what is he trying to tell her? Why the bitterness of the vinegar? Why the vinegar? What bitterness is he trying to tell her? Okay, let's ask the question a little bit differently. There's someone in the chat box. So the vinegar again, is the bitterness. If we look at her, like the journey of her spiritual life, where did it start? Before that, even
She was born.
she was born, right? And then she was a Moabite, right? So she's outside of that life at all. And then we said, she saw the example of Naomi, and maybe that inspired her. She learned something and she wanted more of that. And she loved Naomi so much that she chose to do something extraordinary. And then we have her getting a taste of that now. And she's now working in the field, right? She's now in the church that Abuna discussed last time, right? The field is the church. She's working in the church. She's gleaning in the church. She's surrounded by all of these incredible spiritual role models. She's eating the bread. She's partaking in the life of the church. She's eating that bread of life, that Eucharist that we have. So now comes a vinegar part. And this is, again, just me thinking out loud. I see the vinegar as Boaz trying to tell her, like, this is not going to be an easy journey. This Christian life, a true Christian life, is not something just, go with the flow and come and glean, and I'll feed you all the time and you'll always come and be fed with me. There's always going to be something a little bit bitter. And if we look at, the example of Naomi, she literally experienced that, right? She told them, call me bitter, don't call me Naomi. Because a Christian life has something always for us to carry, a small cross for us to take care of. And that's here, I'm seeing it in this perspective, that Boaz is telling her, there's going to be something not very tasty. There's greatness everywhere, but there's always going to be something not very tasty that you have to do for me. Okay. The one question I want you guys to keep in mind in this part of it, in 14 through 17, is there's always something that we're trying to satisfy. We're always hungry for something. We're always thirsty for something. Might be a better job, or getting someone's attention, or a relationship, or more, money or status or power, or better family life for my family, whatever it may be. It doesn't need to be something bad, but we're always groaning for something to be satisfied. There's always something that moves us towards a decision that we take. What is missing in our life that needs that satisfaction? And I am, the hard truth is, if we go down to the wrong well, or if we go eat from the wrong bread, we're always going to be left hungry. I have a theory, and I'm going to discuss that with you later, but I have a theory actually that this wasn't Ruth's first field. Okay, just kind of get a hint from the text that this wasn't her first field that she went to. And we're going to see that when she goes back and speaks with Naomi in a few verses. But, I have that small Mina opinion, not church fathers, not nothing, that this wasn't the first field that she went to. And I think she tasted things out in the world that weren't satisfying to her. They didn't leave her as fulfilled as we're going to see. Okay, let's continue. So she sat beside the reapers, and he passed parched grain to her, and she ate and was satisfied and kept some back. Verse 15. When she rose up to glean, Boaz commanded his young man, saying, let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. Also let grain from the bundles fall purposely for her. Leave it that she may glean, and do not rebuke her. So the rule of the land of the time, and we see this in Leviticus, is harvest time was time for people who are poor to find food. Okay. And the way that they would do it is, as they're working, they have like a little basket with them that they put, the grains in it as they're working and they're cutting the heads of grain. If anything falls to the ground, they're not allowed to pick it up and put it in their basket. Okay, they have to leave it. And that becomes, for anyone that's passing by, anyone that's poor that needs it, could pick those up then and take it home or eat straight from it. This is why here he's saying, let her glean even among the sheaves. The sheaves are like the nice parts of the field. Also let grain from the bundles fall purposely for her, and leave it that she may glean, and do not rebuke her. So take some extra, throw it for her, so when she's picking up after you, she can take from it. So now all of a sudden, all of the field is wide open for her. Okay. And again, this is a type of relationship that we have with God. Let's think about this from Ruth's perspective for a second. Okay, now she just ate a really nice meal with Boaz, and she's going to go back to work, right? It says she rose to glean. Is she going to find, might be a stupid question because we know the answer, but is she going to find more or less things to glean? More, right? She's going to take more home, right? Does she know why? You know why?
Did you hear him say that?
Does she know? She didn't, right?
Okay, so then no,
She didn't hear him say that. So think about it. I'm trying to get you to think from Ruth's perspective. She goes and all of a sudden she's starting to work in the field, and she's finding all of these blessings happening. She doesn't know where it's coming from. She doesn't know, she might be thinking, oh, these workers are really, really bad. Look at all of the grain that has fallen behind that I'm picking up. In our relationship with God, once we take those first few steps, God really abundantly blesses. God really comes in and puts so much, grace, and you stand up to pray, and it'll be the most beautiful prayer ever. You'll be singing a spiritual song, and you'll be literally like on cloud nine jumping. We have those graces from God every once in a while. And we also see now how God sometimes works in the background without us really knowing, right? Who's the one orchestrating all of this? Boaz. But does she know that? She doesn't see it. It's a great blessing. Or she, if Ruth was not a good person, she'd be like, oh, like, look how hard I'm working. This is the best thing ever. Look at me go. But she's not. She's not. All of this because how much Boaz is giving and how rich he is. And he's always, always, always giving the best. He's telling them, have her go glean among the sheaves, the best part of the field. Have her go after it. Have her take it home. Give her. Stupid business decision, right? He has workers, he has people, all of these things, but we see our God is a rich God, and he has unlimited gifts to give. If we stick in the field, if we stay in the field, if we're okay with that taste of vinegar that's probably still in her mouth. Verse 16, also let grain from the bundles fall purposely for her. Leave it that she may glean, and do not rebuke her. We read 17 as well. So she gleaned in the field until evening and beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. Ephah of barley, nobody could confirm online how much that is, but they're saying it was about anywhere between 30 and 50 pounds worth in one day of hand gleaning. It tells you how much work she did, but at the same time she took a month worth of food home just from one day. Now I have some questions. Did she need that much? So why would she take all of that home? If she didn't need that much for her and Naomi.
To store it.
To store it, okay, right? Share it with others, maybe. Remember, this event of harvest was only like happening, for a few weeks or something. It's not all year long. And she needs to store it to last for the end of the year. If she is thinking short term and she's kind of just looking under her feet of, okay, like I have enough for today, I'll go home, rest up, take a nice shower. She's not going to have food the rest of the year. We always have to be looking ahead in our spiritual life. We cannot just say, okay, I'm happy where I am right now with God. I don't need to dig any deeper. I don't need to experience him more. I don't need to work extra hard in reading the Bible and in digging around and understanding really what the gospel is telling me. I don't need to, trust God with this part of my life because I'm trusting him in these other parts. So it's fine. Like he's taking care of this part, I will control myself. With God, we're either in the field taking as much as we can or we're not. And that's something that Abuna was talking about last week, right? Is you're either, working into growing that relationship or you're working into kind of destroying that relationship. The other question I wanted to ask you guys is, on a practical level, how do we glean? We're saying this nice clean word over and over. We said initially from the start, we said that was one of the two themes, right? Glean and redeem. On a practical level, what does it mean to glean? How can we glean?
I think like to learn from others.
Learn from others.
Take whatever like is given into like don't focus so much on like what's not there, instead focus on what's been given to you.
Very good point. And that's how she started, right? Is she never gleaned before in her life. So she walked in and she saw how others were doing it, and she started to go in and to glean for herself, to take the food, right? Learning from other people and seeing what is there, right? It was the barley harvest, and we're gonna see later, actually, she stayed also for the wheat harvest. Whatever is there that's available, that's what I'm gonna look at, and then that's what I'm gonna take in. Very good point. What else?
When I heard that talk last week, I went to Florida with my two girls, and my oldest brought a friend, and it was a very stressful week with 3 teenagers. Anyway, it was a stressful week with 3 teenagers, and I was snapping and not very nice. And then after I listened to that sermon the following morning, I thought, why was I so mean and snappy sometimes, even though they were impolite at times? But I just thought, I want to be the kind of person that speaks gracefully, patiently, reprimands when needs to, but like I want to be this kind, patient person, but like I don't feed my brain with good things. So then I said, I made a decision. I'm going to try to stay off social media as much as I can. So I was going to give up Facebook completely. I know y'all are on Instagram. Right? It's the same thing, just different age. But I said, okay, no Facebook this week. And I think on Monday, I picked up the phone at least unconsciously, at least 7 times, and was looking at, oh, wait, I'm not supposed to be on. But I just started thinking, gleaning, like it's what we do with our time and what we feed our brain. And not that I am watching bad stuff on TV, but like stupid stuff. Like maybe instead of watching a dumb YouTube video, I could watch a sermon, or instead of we were talking about last week, instead of picking up the phone and looking at Facebook, maybe I could read, a chapter from the Bible. I don't know. So I'm trying, but I just thought, like, if I want to be a certain kind of person, but I'm not feeding myself with those things, then it's not going to happen. So I'll keep snapping at my kids.
Oh, that's a beautiful example, Leslie. And it is that, right? It's our time. That's the only thing that we'll never be able to get back again, right? The one thing we know for sure is there'll be a time will come. Sounds depressing when stopwatch ends, and that's it. It's funny, saying that she gleaned until evening. to the end of the day. That's it. Very, very good
I
point.
like what you were saying. You were saying time, like, you all are young. I heard it said once that I heard a pastor say once that the best Christian years of your life are in your 50s and 60s. And I think it's because we finally figured out what we weren't doing all those years. So if y'all can figure that out earlier, then you'll have a great, great Christian life. So
Figure it out, Mama.
once
Trying.
just commenting about the time.
Yeah. And like I was thinking about this topic of, people who become saints has been on my mind for a couple of weeks now. And the question of how do saints become saints? Like if I ask that question, what do they do that's so strange that makes saints become saints?
They pray more.
Okay. Committed, right, to their prayer, to their reading.
Devote their life to God.
They devote their life.
Their spiritual life is like on a higher status than ours.
Okay. But how do you think they started? Like us. What Leslie's doing is saying, taking the time of, okay, I used so much time committed to this. I'm going to take some of that and slowly start devoting it into things that are not going to be a waste of time or that make me like feel so miserable afterwards or change my behavior. Right? That's it. It's a choice. It comes down to that. It's just a mere choice, not an easy one, but it is a simple choice. I choose to invest my time and my effort and my energy in this, or I choose to invest it in this. She very easily could have said, I'm a woman in my 20s, gonna go maybe work for a little bit, have enough food for the day. I'll walk around, find me a nice guy that will marry me off. He'll take care of me. I don't need to do much. Her choice was committed to her mother-in-law, and providing for the two of them with a long-term vision, not just like, okay, I'm happy for today. A choice, a very difficult one. She's been working since, people in the Jewish community, or even like now, like in Upper Egypt or in, Iowa and Nebraska, with all of like the fields and stuff, farmers start their day one. Does anyone know? Farmers, when they are about to start their day, when does their day start? Around what time in the morning? Before sunrise. Before sunrise. She was working till evening. You see the commitment there. It's like easily a 12-hour shift. It's just a small break in the middle to eat some bread.
I just had this question pop
Yeah.
up. Why did Naomi not join her?
Maybe she was old.
Yeah.
Well,
She
I
was
don't
old.
think so, because back then, people had kids young and she didn't have grandkids yet. So, I had kids late in life and I can go work in the field, no
Yeah.
problem. So Naomi must have been like, I don't know.
I think after like everything that happened to her, or that's just like what I think,
Speak
like
up. Yeah.
even the fact that she was just like, no, don't even call me Naomi, no, just call me bitter. She was kind of just shut down on life, and she was just like, no, I don't want to do this. Like, God, you took away my husband, my kids, and now like I'm coming back to like my hometown, and I have like nothing to offer. Like, so what's the
So
point?
more
Like,
emotionally upset.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know.
I was just looking from a physical standpoint. I'm like, why wasn't she out there? But that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe she's just depressed and sad.
It's shame to go out and have people talk about her. That makes sense.
I don't know why I thought about that just now. I'm like,
No, it's a good
she's out
question.
there.
No, it's a good question, because then like if we compare her with Ruth, okay, one, is maybe like upset and ashamed, and I lost my husband and I lost my kids and decided to stay home. Another one is in a very similar situation. Like I left my family behind and my husband died, but she's willing to go in and do the work. And actually we're going to see like a big blessing that comes soon. It is because of Ruth, not because of Naomi. Naomi started things for Ruth, but kind of just maybe like died off a little bit, or went through a harder part. Yes.
I noticed also when I was reading it that like we don't know that Naomi was good to her.
Mm,
And it's an important point that like she was still good to her. She was still working hard to get food and shelter and everything for her. And like that kind of made me like think of like that we don't have to necessarily be nice or be kind to others only when they're kind to us.
mm. It's a very good lesson. We're gonna hit exactly on that at the very end. Okay, so verse 17 point, the big question there, there's something that we need to keep in mind there is not being satisfied, taking your time wisely and spending it wisely. Okay, let us continue. Joanna, why don't you read for us, but in a much louder voice, please, for the love of God.
Then she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw that she had gleaned. So Ruth brought forth and gave to her what she had kept back after she had been satisfied. And her mother-in-law said to her, "Where have you gleaned today? And where did you work? Blessed be the one who took notice of you." So Ruth told her mother-in-law where she had worked and said, "The man's name with whom I work today is Boaz."
Okay, so 18. So she took it and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. So she brought out and gave to her what she had kept back, and after she had been satisfied. And another question, we know the answer, but did she need to do that?
No.
No. Even like, she even took from what she had kept back from what? Do you remember from earlier?
She kept back the vinegar and
Right, the bread, right? The bread, the blessing. That piece of Boaz that she took, that piece of Christ that she took. A responsibility for us is we need to take Christ to others. And actually, the hardest people that we could take Christ to is our family. We can, speaking from experience here, and no one of my family's here. It's very easy to go across the world. And I always tell people this. I could stand in the middle of Nigeria talking to thousands of people. Doesn't scare me even a little bit. But have me like do it with my family at home, and I'm stumbling over my words, and it's awkward, and it's weird, and it's uncomfortable, right? The hardest people that we can take God to is our family. And if we start in that very small circle, you know how a ripple effect works? Some water and, right? It spreads out. It starts spreading out. More than anything, some of the most successful churches, some of the most strongest services that I've seen were because that person is in a house of that continues to glean in the word of God together. As a family, as a daughter or a father or a mother. There were many stories that I've heard. I'll share something with you. There was a story of this one father who the mother came to, and it was like, my daughter is completely lost, as lost as a girl could be lost. This is in Egypt, and like, have the culture taste to it, like off the rails. She's gone. And she continued to complain to him for like half an hour, 45 minutes. The priest is sitting there just listening. And he goes, "Okay, well, how's your spiritual life?" She goes, "Man, did you not hear me? Like, I've been talking to you about my daughter. Like, we need to come up with a plan for her." And he goes, "I understand what you're saying. How's your spiritual life?" And he kept pushing on that until and then he, in the conversation, he instructs her, he goes, "Okay, you want your daughter to come back and be saved? I could personally I'll tell you exactly what to do. Personal guarantee it will work, but you need to fully listen and commit to it before I tell you what." He's like, "Whatever you tell me, done. Just tell me the plan." He goes, "Go back, start digging into your Bible. Forget about her completely. Forget about her actions. Forget about everything. Commit to your Bible. Commit to your prayer life." And she started a week in, 2 weeks. The daughter's noticing like there's no fighting at home. Like, she'll pop into her, "Mom, what are you doing?" And she'll be like, "Don't bother me. I'm reading right now." Just completely ignoring her. She's listening to the instruction. Little by little, the daughter starts to change. Mom, what's going on? Are you like, did something happen? Whatever. No, I'm just reading. No, I'm just praying. Little by little, that small change starts affecting the daughter. Until one day she goes with the mother to this priest in order to sit with him and to confess and turn and became a great servant. The actions that we take with our families, as impossibly hard as it might sound, the rewards for it are incredible. And we're going to see that taking place here. Don't leave that blessing of taking Christ to your family. Verse 19, and her mother-in-law said to her, where have you gleaned today? This is where I was saying, I feel like she gleaned somewhere else beforehand, but it's just a theory, probably a heretic. Where have you gleaned today, and where did you work? Blessed be the one who took notice of you. Okay. And I almost like want to say, she's walking in with 50 pounds worth of grain and food, and extra special food on the side for dinner, and all of these things. I think, maybe this was not the very first place that she went to. And she saw how badly she was treated, or that she was, later on we see her saying, stay with them, stay in the field so nobody touches you or hurts you. Maybe she was hurt outside before. But once she stepped into that field, nothing else could satisfy. And physically, Naomi could see that in her. Who else can satisfy like this? It is hard work. It's not easy, but nothing leaves you more satisfied than being in the field and working in the field all day, even if it's exhausting. I'll give you guys an example. What is, if I tell you your favorite day of in the life of the church, what's your favorite day, that every, you really, really look forward to? Christmas. That's a very good one. What else?
New Year.
Good Friday. What else?
New Year's.
Say that again, George.
New Year's.
Okay.
New Year.
New Year's. That's a very fun day. What else? So Good Friday, Christmas, New Year's. If I think about those days, how long are you in church for?
A really long time.
A really long time, right? For New Year's or for Good Friday, you're there for 10 hours, right? And it's exhausting, and you're standing and you're sitting and you're singing the entire day. Same with Christmas. But you leave the happiest, always, right? You leave the happiest. But does it make sense? Think about it, I'm if you go to someone who doesn't know and you tell them, oh yeah, I've been in church for 10 hours, we've been chanting and sitting and bowing down and standing. I say that sounds kind of extreme and kind of exhausting. But you leave here jumping, right? On Christmas you go back home, or New Year's you go back home at midnight or 1 in the morning, and you stay up even for a couple extra hours with the food and the people and the gathering, and you're not tired. That extra work that we do in God's field gives energy. And I've tested this over and over and over again. When we were in Nigeria, I wish someone from Nigeria would have joined the call, but it's 3 in the morning. Would come in Friday night for an overnight thing, from 7 p.m. Friday, we'll do different sessions, we'll do praises. We'll come up with plans for the next day, which is our big spiritual days. We'll sleep at 3 in the morning, wake up at 6, exhausted. But every single time we did an overnight, Saturday morning, the service was on fire. Kids are energetic. We are all all of us servants are super energetic. I can't explain it to you. The days where we're very well rested, whatever, not bad. But the Saturdays where we have a sleepover, they know it now. When they want to do something big, they'll do an overnight, because they know how much God gives on Saturday, on the next morning after all of their tiredness has been. Experience that with God. That extra gleaning will always provide extra blessing, extra grace. and people will notice that. And she said, blessed be the one who took notice of you. So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked and said, the man's name with whom I work today is Boaz. Right? Is Boaz. Okay, let's continue. Monica, maybe you could read 20 through 23.
And Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, blessed be he by the Lord whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead. Naomi also said to her, the man is a relative of ours, one of our nearest kin. And Ruth the Moabitess said, besides, he said to me, you shall keep close by my servants till they have finished all my harvest. And Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, it is well, my daughter, that you go out with his maidens, lest in another field you be molested. So she kept close to the maidens of Boaz, gleaning until the end of the barley and wheat harvests, and she lived with her mother-in-law.
Okay. So a couple of things to unpack. If we read 20 one more time, but I'm going to read it from NIV, just because I have like it's going to start hitting on that second theme. So now we've hit on gleaning. What was the other big theme? Redemption. Okay. Listen to it from the NIV and some other
You
translation.
like the last word.
I like the
Because I
last
have the
word.
NIV, so.
Good. Read it for us, Leslie.
Oh, the Lord blessed him, Naomi said to her daughter-in-law. He has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead. She added, that man is our close relative. He is one of our guardian redeemers.
He is one of our guardian redeemers. And this guardian redeemer here comes from Leviticus. Remember, we kind of tried to cover this before, where the next person in line has to redeem by marriage the woman and the field and all of these things. That man is our close relative. He's one of our guardian redeemers. And actually, the other thing that I want to show you guys is when it says he has not stopped showing his kindness to the living. This kindness here is a word that I'm going to give you as a little bit of homework. I'll cover it a little bit, but I'll give you as homework. This is a Hebrew word called hesed, H-E-S-E-D, hesed. This word is all over the Old Testament. It's like over 250 times mentioned in the Old Testament. This word translates to, unfailing love, faithful love, kindness, graciousness. What it comes down to is like a love of covenant. Okay, like I am committed to this love, no matter what takes place. I'm committed to this covenantal love. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good. So like we see it all over, you'll see it in, like, someone pull up Psalm 103 verses 3 and 4, just like as a small example. Psalm 103. I wish we had more time to kind of discuss this more, but I'll just give it to you as homework. It says, who forgives all our sins and heals all our diseases, and who redeems your life from the pit and crowns you with love and compassion. That love and compassion right there is that word hesed. So it's a complete, undeserved love and kindness and generosity. This word is used a lot actually in the book of Ruth. When Ruth chose to go and serve Naomi and serve Naomi, that was a hesed, that was an undeserved kindness. It gets mentioned earlier when when Ruth says to Boaz, I think it was verse 13. I don't have it marked. Let me find favor in your sight, my Lord, for you have comforted me and have spoken kindly to your maid. Maybe it wasn't that part, but Ruth mentions that to Boaz. You're showing me this unloving kindness. And then now Naomi says it about God himself. Look up this word because it's a big key in the Old Testament, this undeserved covenantal kindness to God. It's, the in the book of Hosea, for example, in the book of Hosea, God asks Hosea the prophet to marry a prostitute, right? And tells them, I'm going to have her go and cheat on you, and you need to go back and return her back to show you how much I love Israel and how much I want to redeem Israel. That word is used in that perspective, is an undeserved love, a kindness and a graciousness that you don't deserve whatsoever, but that love is constant and does not depend on you whatsoever. Does that make sense? So this word hesed, which you were talking about earlier, is Ruth showed it to Naomi, and now God is showing it, and Boaz is showing it to Ruth. And again, we see it all over. Okay. So in verse 20, this, and the Lord blessed him, Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, he has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead. The man is our close relative. He's one of our guardian redeemers. Look at, obviously she's saying it, about God and about Boaz, but look at it completely as us up with Christ. He has not stopped showing his kindness to the living, to the dead. And this man is our close relative. He's one of our guardian redeemers. He is our guardian redeemer. He is coming in as a Boaz, as someone who is of the same family. The humanity of Christ is there. The humanity of Jesus is there. He knows all of the brokenness, the weakness, the pain, the suffering, the anger, the frustrations, the tears. He's seen those. He knows those. And he's very close to that. He is a close relative. Then Ruth the Moabite said, he said to me, stay with my workers until they finish harvesting all my grain. Stay and learn, because later on she's going to be using that. 22, Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, it will be good for you, my daughter, to go with the women who work for him, because in someone else's field you might be harmed. Sorry, I'm reading from the NIV, but she's trying to say what? Like, you can't serve in two different fields. You can't serve two masters. Again, back to that choice. Commit to him. Don't sell yourself short. Don't sell yourself to another field that might look like it's promising and it's great and it has so many things in it. And it's a much bigger field, because you'll end up harmed. He wants you in his field. Stay in his field. So Ruth stayed close to the woman of Boaz to glean until the barley and wheat harvest were finished, and she lived with her mother-in-law. Stay close to the woman. Stay close to the saints of the church. That's what St. Paul says, right? You're surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. Who are the cloud of witnesses? The saints, but also the cloud of witnesses right here in front of me. We are the cloud of witnesses. Our family members are the cloud of witnesses. Stay close to the cloud of witnesses. Stay close to where the people of God are, to motivate each other in that way. If she would go out and make friends with other people who work and glean in other fields, oh, come hang out with us today, come glean with us today. Slowly you'll start pulling her out. Staying close to the people of God allows us to stay in that same area, in that same mentality. What they feed me in, just like social media, is what I will be giving back out. You could even, see it with yourself whenever like you go and you hang out with someone for the weekend, or maybe you're at your grandmother's, or maybe you travel with someone to see a close friend and you stay with them for a while. You start almost like speaking in that person's perspective and language, right? Imagine being that with the people of God, with the saints, with the word of God. That's what makes us saints. That's what changes us. What Ruth did in this chapter, in order to gain that, cover with the shadow of his wings, is she gave that Hesed love. She gave that unfailing love to Naomi. And because of that, God came, Christ came, Boaz came, and gave that same type of love to her. That's what this chapter comes down to, is she started to work hard to stay in the field, not care how much labor or how much effort or whatever, to feed not just herself, but also for Naomi, even though Naomi chose to be home. And because of that, Boaz took notice of her. We're going to see what he ends up doing with her in the next chapter. How much more grace, how much more love he gives. An undeserved love. An undeserved love. If anyone should be giving her love back, it's Naomi. It's normal. She showed her love, he showed me love. But the undeserved love that Boaz comes to bring changes her life. Stay in the field, abide in the field. Show that type of love to others, and God will come and cover you with the same. Making those small, hard choices is the key. Any questions, comments, extra observations? Thank you, George. It was very nice having you, man.
I want to come again next week.
God willing, I will.
Yeah.
We'll have the same session next week.
Okay. I will come.
Okay, good. It's nice having you.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions
Do
or
you have anything?
so? Okay,
Okay,
so
especially that in the beginning of the chapter, he knows about what she's done. He tells her, I know what you've done with your mother-in-law. And then in the middle of the chapter, he actually asks the other people to purposely leave some of that she can take them. And he's very generous. He knows her story. He could have just, been really kind and nice to them and just send them that to her house and didn't have to glean.
what do you guys
Why
think?
the gleaning?
What do you guys think? Why
Maybe
make her
so that
green?
He doesn't differentiate between her and the other people.
Okay. Doesn't differentiate, but still, why? Like, why? Why can't he just have some of his
Because
servants?
he's differentiating between her and
He
other people.
is.
He's treating her differently.
He is treating her differently.
But I think like if we're looking at Boaz as in God, God is not gonna give us something so easily. We have to just like we always say, like if you get it easily, it will be gone easily. So I feel like the reason that Boaz had to put her through that is for her to actually become stronger and more independent,
Mm.
not because he uses children.
To like learn its meaning, its worth or value.
And who are these servants? Like, if we think spiritually, who are these servants?
Us.
Yeah, other people. Other people. God likes to use us to help each other. There's a story, I've said it before. This priest, this very saintly but very simply priest, in the middle of nowhere, is always like praying liturgy, the most simple man, and actually always like an angel would come. Whenever he prays liturgy, an angel would always come and be in the altar with him. Every week, same thing. And then one day, it's just a very simple priest. One day, a very big popular deacon visits that church, and the priest stands up to pray, and he comes to a specific part, and the deacon stops him and he goes, "No, Father, actually this part that you said is not theologically correct. You're saying it wrong. You need to say it in his perspective." The priest got really confused and upset. He's like, "What do you mean? Like, I don't know, man. Like, an angel comes and stands here. Like, if I was saying something that's not right, the angel would correct me." Oh, that week passes. The next week, the priest comes to church to pray the liturgy, and the angel comes. And the priest goes, "I've been praying about this all week. Who's right? What I'm praying or what the deacon told me? Who's right?" The angel goes, "No, listen to what the deacon told you. What the deacon told you is right." He goes, Why didn't you just tell me from the beginning? Like, why make me keep saying something wrong?" And the angel replies, "God sent you this deacon so you can correct that. God wants, as humans, as brothers and sisters, as a body of Christ, to help each other, to assist each other, to do it in a loving way, but to be there to support each other. It's why we have a church community. Although we all come and suffer, if there is if you ever see a church that doesn't have, any issues or any, rough edges or anything like that, it's very hard for a person to find salvation in that church. You need to, they talk about this in the monastic sense that the monks and the nuns, when they go together, they say, it's kind of like, did you guys ever see this thing? I'm forgetting the name of it. It's this big thing of water, and small rocks go inside of it to be washed by water, and it keeps going for a while. Have you ever seen that?
Tumbler.
It's like how you what's it called?
A tumbler.
Tumbler, yes. So like it's a big thing of water, and the rocks actually with the water keep grinding on each other and flourishing each other and polishing each other. But it comes out very, very beautiful. Much more beautiful than they went in. Because the rocks help shape each other and make each other more beautiful. It's the same concept within a community, within the church. It's why she also needed to be in the field.
Oh, so she can be around the
She
other
could be
servants.
around the others. She could learn. She can work. It's not just the hard work part of it. Obviously, that's a big part of it, to rely on herself and to get stronger and to be able to stand on her feet, but also to learn from the others and to be polished by the others. Makes sense? Okay.
Mina,
Yes, Rosh. I couldn't hear you clearly, George. Maybe I can message you.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll message you now.
sorry.
No, it's okay. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Thank you guys so much. I'm gonna stop the sharing and the recording.